So a couple months ago, I put out a survey for wellness professionals, coaches, nutritionists, etc., who want to work in the anti-diet space. And I asked them, what are your big teacher training questions? What do you feel like you need the most support around when it comes to working with clients? And the most common question I got was, how do you work with clients who, quote, aren't ready to stop dieting? Now, this was interesting because depending on the person who is asking the question, I got very, very different stories about what not ready to stop dieting means. So some practitioners were asking the very earnest question, how do I work with somebody who really wants to stop dieting, who knows in their heart that dieting isn't serving them, but who's scared, right? Who's just really overwhelmed at the prospect of letting go around food and weight? And to that, I would say that is a huge, big question. I could argue that my entire teacher training program, my entire professional mentorship program really is designed to help with that particular question. That's sort of what we're doing as coaches, is supporting folks who want to stop dieting but feel overwhelmed or scared or like they can't do it on their own. The other group of practitioners, though, who asked me this question were very clear that they were working with folks who did not see the value of letting go of dieting, who clearly had different goals than them, who really were committed to continuing to try to lose weight, and weren't interested really in letting go of dieting, but that perhaps the practitioner didn't know how to deal with that situation, right? Wasn't really clear about how to work with somebody who ultimately had different goals than them, right? And I would argue, of course, there are absolutely ways, if you are working in a clinical setting or working, in a position where you absolutely need to be offering care to somebody who does hold weight loss as a goal. I think that there are ways to do that more responsibly than others. Like, for instance, just being really honest with that patient about what the realities of dieting are for them, and what the likelihood of success is. But ultimately, I think if you are a practitioner who is, in a position where you're regularly working with clients who do not have the same goals as you, who are not aligned with you, your best bet, what's going to be ultimately most fulfilling for you, is changing the clients that you're working with, right? And really, this is not a teacher training question. This is a business and marketing question, right? The real question here is, how do I work towards developing a clientele that actually does share goals with me? How do I get out of working in a clinical setting with other practitioners and in a practice that doesn't align with my values anymore, and get into either working in a place that's more supportive of my weight neutral values, or potentially starting a private practice, which is, I think where a lot of weight neutral coaches and nutritionists are moving. So something to think about, which of these two categories do you fall into when you're asking the question, how do I work with folks who aren't ready to stop dieting? Ask yourself this sort of secondary question, is this a person who wants to stop dieting, who actually probably is ready to stop dieting, but needs to go at a certain pace, needs a certain level of support, maybe feeling a lot of difficult feelings about moving through this process? Or is this a client who really doesn't want to stop dieting and I'm just sort of projecting my values onto them, in which case we might just not be a fit for work together?